The presidency is often seen as the apex of political power, yet life after leaving the Oval Office holds surprises. Take Donald Trump, for instance. Engaged in business ventures post-office, he's seen financial success. But the reality for ex-presidents is far from ordinary. Despite the allure of freedom, they face stringent rules, from security measures banning driving and cell phones to relentless loss of privacy. Join us as we uncover rules former presidents must adhere to after leaving office. Safeguarding secrets. As President of the United States, residing in the White House means having access to a vast array of highly sensitive, classified, and top-secret information. This includes crucial details ranging from nuclear launch procedures to the identities of covert operatives abroad, all of which are vital to national security. However, this privilege comes with stringent responsibilities. It is illegal and potentially catastrophic for a former president to improperly disclose or exploit classified information. According to National Security Attorney Bradley Moss, any unauthorized disclosure of classified details constitutes a federal felony. The penalties become even more severe if there is any attempt to profit from such actions. These regulations are meticulously enforced to safeguard national security and protect sensitive information that, if mishandled, could endanger the safety of the country. Allegations of mishandling classified information, if substantiated, underscore the seriousness with which the US government addresses potential breaches of classified protocols. Why every former US president has a library. Have you ever wondered why every US president, upon leaving office, gets a library named in their honor? This tradition, mandated by the 1955 Presidential Libraries Act, not only commemorates their tenure, but also serves a deeper purpose. They house extensive archives containing every non-classified document and communication produced during a president's term, offering an unfiltered glimpse into their administration. This includes significant events and controversies, such as Bill Clinton's impeachment scandal, which is documented at his library in Little Rock, Arkansas. The Presidential Libraries Act ensures that presidential records belong to the public, preventing presidents from selectively withholding information, a response to Richard Nixon's attempt to conceal details about the Watergate scandal. However, presidents do have some discretion in how certain topics are presented within their libraries. For example, documents at George W. Bush's library in Dallas, Texas, cover his decision to invade Iraq, though they may reflect a perspective supportive of his wartime policies. Life under constant watch. While it may seem liberating to have held one of the most powerful jobs in the world, the reality for former presidents is quite different. They are constantly accompanied by a secret service detail, which makes spontaneity nearly impossible. For the average person, grabbing a coffee at Starbucks or going for a walk is a simple, unplanned activity. However, for a former president with a large security team, these everyday tasks can become complicated undertakings. Imagine wanting to go for your usual stroll or dine out, but having to do so while surrounded by a security squad that keeps everyone else at a distance. Everything must be meticulously planned and protected, turning ordinary events into high-profile operations. For instance, during his presidency, Barack Obama once made a Starbucks run, prompting the Secret Service to redirect pedestrians and close streets. He humorously addressed the situation by asking the agents to give him a little space, highlighting the ongoing challenges of living under strict supervision.
Guys, you gotta give me a little space though. Come on.
Obama was known for his love of pickup basketball, a hobby that was heavily restricted by his security detail while he was in office. According to NBC News, he was frustrated by the Secret Service's requirement that such games be scheduled at least 4 hours in advance. This illustrates the level of planning and oversight that accompanies every activity of a former president. So, if you're considering a future run for the presidency, keep in mind that even after serving your country, the simple, everyday things you once took for granted may never be the same. Lifelong updates. One of the key responsibilities of the President of the United States is to stay informed about any threats to national security. Every day, generals and CIA officials provide briefings on global events and their potential impact on the country. While it might seem that a former president can relax and disengage from these concerns after leaving office, this is not the case. Even after their term ends, former presidents must continue to read national security briefings daily, although they no longer make decisions. The reason for this ongoing requirement is to keep them informed in case they need to offer advice to the current administration or respond to media inquiries about current situations. Many people were unaware of this practice until 2018, when then-President Trump threatened to revoke Barack Obama's access to national security briefings. This incident highlighted the lifelong responsibilities that come with being a former president. Being kept up to date with the same information as the sitting president ensures they remain valuable resources for national security and international relations. Presidential pensions. As of 2001, the annual salary for the President of the United States is set at $400,000 by an act of Congress. Upon leaving office, former presidents continue to receive a taxpayer-funded pension, which is slightly more than half of their presidential salary. In 2021, this pension amounted to $221,400 per year. This is the pension that all former presidents, including Donald Trump, are entitled to receive. However, had the Senate convicted him during his second impeachment trial in 2021, he might not have been eligible for these payments, as presidents removed from office do not qualify for the Perpetual Retirement Fund. The exact amount of the pension can vary over time. According to the Congressional Research Service, the pension for a former president is comparable to the salary of the head of a cabinet-level agency, such as the Department of Defense, State, or Commerce. Additionally, the Act provides for the widows of former presidents, stating that they are entitled to receive a monetary allowance. Given that the legislation was created long before the concept of a male-first spouse, and at a time when a dollar had much greater purchasing power, it is perhaps unsurprising that the Treasury Department only pays a modest $20,000 annually in installments. To receive the $1,666.67 monthly check, the widow or widower must forego any other government benefits or pensions. Furthermore, they will not receive a pension if they remarry before the age of 60 or take up a federal government job with a salary. Not every president has automatically qualified for retirement benefits. In fact, it was the plight of Harry Truman, who left office in 1953, that led to the establishment of the Former Presidents Act of 1958. After his presidency, Truman turned down nearly all job offers, deeming them unsuitable for a former president. He lived primarily on his $112.56 monthly Army pension, which he considered inadequate. Recognizing the need to support former commanders-in-chief, Congress passed the Former Presidents Act, which increased Truman's monthly income to $25,000. The driving ban. One of the greatest perks of being president is not having to deal with daily traffic. Presidents have drivers to take them where they need to go, and the Secret Service can clear the way to ensure their security. While this arrangement can be inconvenient for other drivers, it's a necessary measure given the president's important responsibilities. However, there is a significant downside to this privilege. Once a president's term ends, they can never drive a car on an open road again. This restriction is due to the lifetime Secret Service detail that all former presidents receive. The reasoning is clear. Being on the road is one of the most vulnerable situations a person can face, and former presidents are permanent targets for potential threats. This precaution is crucial for their safety, preventing them from exposing themselves to unnecessary risks. As George W. Bush explained to Jay Leno, he is only allowed to drive on his own private property, away from any potential dangers or individuals who may wish him harm. Whenever they need to travel, former presidents must be accompanied by Secret Service agents trained in evasive and defensive driving maneuvers. This rule originated after the tragic assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963, which highlighted the vulnerability of presidents and the need for enhanced security measures. Lyndon B. Johnson remains the last president to have driven on public roads. This measure ensures that former presidents are kept safe, even in retirement, from the threats that come with their former office. Diplomatic duties beyond the presidency. It's important to recognize that former presidents do not relinquish their responsibilities to the government once they leave office. They continue to serve as the nation's goodwill ambassadors, playing a vital role in maintaining and enhancing diplomatic relationships with other countries. Their experience and stature make them invaluable assets, often supporting current governmental initiatives. To aid in these significant efforts, former presidents receive a $1 million annual travel budget. This fund ensures they can participate in crucial diplomatic missions and maintain their active involvement in international affairs. Additionally, their spouses are allocated a $50,000 annual travel fund, allowing them to accompany and assist in these essential diplomatic endeavors. Former presidents routinely engage in diplomatic and humanitarian activities overseas and serve as diplomatic emissaries on behalf of the United States, according to an official who spoke with Politico. Their extensive travel expenses and other professional costs are reimbursed, with oversight by the General Services Administration. One significant privilege former presidents enjoy is the use of diplomatic passports, which exempts them from the often arduous visa application process for certain countries. This streamlined travel process allows them to focus on their diplomatic missions without bureaucratic hindrances. For instance, former President Barack Obama remains active in foreign policy. At the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow in 2021, he participated in discussions and advocated for global climate action. Lifelong protection. Throughout their lives, former US presidents are provided with permanent Secret Service protection, a privilege ensuring their safety and security. This lifetime security is a right bestowed upon all former presidents, who have the autonomy to determine the level of protection they desire. Nevertheless, it is highly uncommon for a former president to forgo this security detail. After all, who would turn down such a benefit, especially when it comes at no personal cost? To date, Richard Nixon stands as the only former president to have declined the Secret Service protection after leaving office. In 1985, Nixon chose to opt out, expressing his intent to save taxpayer money and his belief that he no longer required the protection. This extensive security coverage is not exclusive to former presidents, but also includes their immediate family members. The children of former presidents are entitled to full protection until they turn 16, ensuring their safety during their formative years. However, they can choose to decline this security once they reach adulthood. For example, Donald Trump Jr., the eldest son of former President Donald Trump, decided to opt out of Secret Service protection in 2017, seeking greater privacy and independence. Former Secret Service agent Jonathan Wackrow described presidential protection to NBC News as the most intrusive thing that anyone could ever experience. Essentially, former presidents are constantly surrounded by people they barely know, as agents are frequently rotated or reassigned. This means ex-presidents are likely to be in the company of strangers for the rest of their lives. These agents remain on duty even during personal conflicts, such as arguments between spouses, and are present during holidays. Imagine celebrating Thanksgiving with a group of agents in black suits nearby. This scenario played out for Donald Trump when he was president-elect. During a holiday dinner at Mar-a-Lago, more than 150 Secret Service agents were present, as all of his family members in attendance had their own security details. Given this level of intrusion, one might reconsider the decision to reject such protection. Health benefits. In addition to providing former presidents with a substantial pension, the Former Presidents Act of 1958 also grants them specific benefits upon leaving office. One of the most significant of these is the eligibility for the Federal Employees Health Benefits (FEHB) program, but this is mainly available to two-term presidents. To qualify for this government-funded health insurance, former presidents must meet the same requirements as other federal employees, which includes having served in the government for at least 5 years. Therefore, a president who has served 2 terms, 8 years, automatically qualifies. However, this does not apply to one-term presidents like Jimmy Carter and Donald Trump, who did not hold senior government positions before or during their presidency. While eligible former presidents benefit from the FEHB program, their healthcare costs are not entirely covered. The federal government, funded by taxpayers, covers about 75% of their medical expenses, while the former president is responsible for the remaining 25%. Former presidents, along with their families and children under 18, receive medical care at military hospitals. One notable facility providing such care is the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, located near Washington, D.C. According to Stephanie Smith, a government and finance specialist, the Secretary of Defense is in charge of the health care for former presidents and their immediate families, officially referred to as secretarial designees. This ensures they have access to comprehensive medical care even after their time in office. Mail screening by the Secret Service. Former presidents' privacy is significantly restricted, with Secret Service personnel having the authority to access their personal correspondence. Before any ordinary mail or packages reach a former president, they undergo a rigorous inspection by agents. While this may appear intrusive, these measures have proven essential in preventing potentially harmful deliveries. According to Bloomberg law, the Secret Service has intercepted explosives destined for former presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, along with other prominent figures. It's important to note that the inspection process is not limited to simply opening letters upon retrieval from the mailbox. Off-site security personnel, trained in handling explosives, hazardous chemicals, and other threats, thoroughly screen every piece of mail. Each item is meticulously examined to ensure there are no dangers posed to the former president. In addition to the Secret Service, the USPS plays a role in monitoring former presidents' mail through the Dangerous Mail Investigations Program. This initiative is designed to identify and intercept suspicious packages regardless of the intended recipient, contributing to overall security efforts. So if you are fond of being the only eye to see your mail, being a president is not a thing for you, as there is no secret even after leaving office. Blair House. Did you know there's a historic townhouse in Washington, D.C. that serves as a unique retreat for former U.S. presidents? Tucked away on the west side of Lafayette Square, amidst a row of townhouse-style structures on Jackson Place, sits Blair House, also known as the President's Guest House. Purchased by the federal government in the late 1950s, Blair House encompasses several interconnected buildings, with 716 Jackson Place at its heart. Dating back to the 1860s, this property was once home to Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. In 1969, President Richard Nixon designated it as the Presidential Townhouse through an executive order. Since then, it has served as a temporary residence for former presidents visiting Washington, D.C., whether for official duties, leisure, or other personal reasons unrelated to their time in office. Originally modest and sparsely furnished, the house underwent significant improvements thanks to private funds secured by President George W. Bush. This initiative, started as a gesture of courtesy to his predecessor Lyndon Johnson by Nixon, has provided a comfortable and dignified lodging option for former presidents when they are in the nation's capital. Reservations for stays at the Presidential Townhouse are coordinated through a liaison at the nearby White House, ensuring convenient access for its esteemed guests. Surveillance. These days, there's a widespread assumption that government surveillance is omnipresent, fueled by past scandals over illegal warrantless surveillance of American individuals. In response, the intelligence community has worked to improve transparency and now generally seeks warrants for surveillance activities. However, when it comes to safeguarding the security of both sitting and former presidents, the Secret Service often operates under exemptions from these regulations. For example, The Hill reported that the Department of Homeland Security argued it was impractical to require the Secret Service to obtain warrants for monitoring the president and other high-profile individuals. As a result, exceptions to warrant laws were granted, particularly concerning devices like stingrays, which track the location of cell phones. These tools are crucial for the Secret Service, allowing them to respond swiftly to potential threats, from suspicious communications to threatening phone calls. It's important to note that while devices like stingrays track locations, they do not intercept the contents of communications. Nevertheless, they represent just one of many surveillance techniques available to law enforcement. The Secret Service considers routine monitoring of communications a necessary but intrusive practice to ensure the safety of those they are sworn to protect, both during and after their time in office. Term of office. After the four-term presidency of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who passed away in office in 1945, the Republican-controlled Congress moved to establish what would become the 22nd Amendment to the United States Constitution. This amendment introduced term limits for the presidency, stating, "No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once." This means that a president who has served 2 full terms is ineligible to run for the presidency again, regardless of whether their terms were consecutive or not. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama are the only living former presidents who have each served 2 complete terms, making them ineligible to seek office again. Both Donald Trump and Jimmy Carter are one-term presidents who theoretically have the option to run for office again, should they choose to do so. It's also important to note that according to the 12th Amendment, individuals constitutionally ineligible to be president, such as those who have already served 2 terms, are also ineligible to serve as vice president. This provision ensures that the presidency and vice presidency remain distinct offices with separate eligibility requirements. Transition team. former presidents must begin preparing for life after office while still in office. 6 months before the November election, the outgoing president is required to establish their White House Transition Coordinating Council. This council comprises appointees from the cabinet and is led by a senior member of the president's staff, alongside the U.S. archivist, and representatives from key agencies such as the Office of Management and Budget, the Office of Personnel Management, the Office of Government Ethics, and the General Services Administration. Together, this council serves as an advisory and operational body, facilitating the efficient, transparent, and secure exchange of information between the outgoing administration and the incoming government. They play a crucial role in ensuring a smooth transition of responsibilities by engaging with the transition teams of both the outgoing and incoming presidents. This structured framework is essential for maintaining continuity and order during the transition period. Funding for the Council's operations is provided by the federal government and supports its activities through the initial months of the incoming presidential administration. For instance, the Consolidated Appropriations Act allocated over $9 million for the most recent presidential transition in 2020 to 2021. Compliance with these regulations by all former presidents is crucial to ensuring a seamless and transparent transfer of power between administrations. Planned funeral. Upon inauguration, one of the first tasks for a new president is to plan their eventual funeral, as mandated by federal law. Following a former president's death, American flags nationwide must be flown at half-mast for 30 days. The deceased president's wishes, often including military honors such as a procession or flyover, are carried out under the oversight of the Commanding General of the Military District of Washington, U.S. Army. According to the official guideline, state, official, and special military funerals, the body of a former president may lie in repose for 1 day before being transferred to the U.S. Capitol Rotunda for public viewing. Coordination between the Defense and State Departments, along with the Commanding General, ensures the execution of the state funeral arrangements. After the funeral service, a former president may choose to be buried at Arlington National Cemetery, a privilege afforded by their role as Commander-in-Chief. Though this is not obligatory, only 2 presidents, William Howard Taft and John F. Kennedy, have chosen Arlington as their final resting place. Others have opted for burial in their hometowns or other significant locations. Honors traditionally associated with an Arlington ceremony can alternatively be bestowed at the departure point where the former president's body begins its journey home, whether at a train station or airport. Planning ahead. As a sitting president, meticulous planning for security reasons is a necessity, often requiring weeks or months of preparation. But even as a former president, this level of foresight remains essential. Despite wielding immense power during their tenure, the reality is that the constant presence of Secret Service protection limits spontaneity. The Secret Service requires substantial advance notice to arrange security details, typically setting up multiple perimeter rings around their charge. This means that any public outings desired by a former president must be carefully scouted and planned well in advance, sometimes weeks or months ahead. The Secret Service maintains a strict protocol where any trip that doesn't meet their security standards can be immediately halted. Former Secret Service agent Jonathan Wackrow emphasized to NBC News, "We're not going to just say, okay, we're going to push back." While compromises can sometimes be reached, the priority always remains on security and safety first. Security teams are trained to be adaptable and quick-thinking, yet meticulous advanced preparation is crucial to mitigate as many uncertainties as possible. In addition to security concerns, former presidents also contend with a significant loss of privacy. Every aspect of their lives, from daily schedules to travel arrangements, must be meticulously planned to ensure their protection. Their residences, equipped with advanced security systems, are also subject to constant monitoring to deter potential intruders. Former presidents and public criticism. In the world of work, it's almost a rite of passage to leave a job and silently critique your successor, thinking, they're just not doing it right. It's a common human reaction to reflect on past roles and sometimes find fault with those who follow. However, former presidents in the United States historically haven't had the luxury of publicly criticizing their successors. While not a formal rule, there's an unwritten White House tradition dating back nearly to the nation's founding that suggests ex-presidents should refrain from disparaging current or past presidents. Retired presidents are typically expected to stay out of political controversies and avoid making negative comments about their predecessors. This tradition has faced challenges in recent decades, especially amidst increasing political polarization. In the 21st century, there's been a notable rise in former presidents publicly criticizing sitting administrations. Barack Obama, for instance, has been vocal in his criticism of Donald Trump's handling of issues like the COVID-19 pandemic. Such instances suggest a departure from the traditional restraint observed by former presidents. As partisanship and public discourse evolve, this tradition of presidential decorum is likely to continue eroding. Political differences are becoming more pronounced, and public statements are growing more pointed. The expectation that former presidents refrain from criticism may become less influential in shaping their public behavior. These rules that former presidents must follow highlight ongoing constraints on their lives even after leaving office, emphasizing the importance of their safety and the unique challenges they face as public figures.